Hey, welcome to today's video about regaining your motivation for photography. Something a little bit different today. I'm shooting outside just because it's good to change things up a little bit, and it kind of ties into the subject that I'm going to talk about today. So this is a subject that comes up a lot, something I've been asked about, I've had discussions with people about. It's always on one's mind as a creative person, I think, whether it's to do with photography or some other endeavor that you lose motivation for. And I've only ever touched on it in some videos, but today I thought I would make a whole video just discussing it and sharing some of my thoughts, my personal strategies on how to regain that motivation, or whether you should or not, just about that topic as a whole. So the first thing I want to share, if you're stuck wondering how to get your motivation back for photography or some other creative endeavor, is to don't bother trying to do it. Maybe it's good to have a break. Maybe you don't need to force it. Maybe it's just okay to actually have that time off, to have that loss of motivation every now and then. We don't always need to have it. So that's why I wanted to mention that first, is if you're stuck constantly trying to regain motivation for something, maybe don't do it for a little bit. So it's not always necessary is what I'm trying to say with this first point. But with that out of the way, the second, and I believe the most applicable, I think, to most situations, photography or not, is to create the motivation. Don't wait for it. Don't expect it to even be there. It kind of ties into the first one. So rather than play tricks or do certain strategies all the time, which I will talk about soon, just create the motivation, because it's not always that motivation needs to come first before you can go and do the thing. Something I've learned not only through photography but other things is that sometimes you need to just do the thing, and then that creates the motivation. Sometimes you need to force yourself to just go out and do it, whether it's taking photos, whether it's doing graphic design or painting or working out, whatever it might be. Sometimes you just need to go out and do it without the motivation, even though it's not feeling good or optimal. You just do it, and then as you get into that, the motivation comes later. So a lot of the time, that's how it is. You can't expect yourself to always feel motivated, and if you are, maybe consider creating the motivation by doing the thing first, and that creates a cascade of motivation later, which then fuels the next steps of that endeavor. So sometimes that is the best strategy. The third strategy that I have that I want to share with you is to connect with the world around you and with people, with places to do with your thing or not, and to just explore, to just connect and not get too stuck in your own mind about things. Sometimes, for example, in photography, that could mean just getting out and talking about it. Don't always rely on social media, something that a lot of us in this day and age have become so attuned to relying on, and we shouldn't. So what I think works a lot of the time is to get out there in the real world, explore, meet people in your circle. So for example, with this channel, with Pushing Film, I created the Discord group, and we have these meetups every now and then. We just get together, we chat, and sometimes that creates motivation in one's mind after bouncing ideas back and forth, after seeing what other people are doing or talking about, chatting about whatever it might be, and then holding each other accountable, giving each other goals, and sharing your own projects. So that's just one of the things that I like happening here in Melbourne as an example. And even then I wanted to share, if you don't already know about them, another group in Melbourne that meets up called Our Stories on Film. This is actually one of their zines, and it's a group contribution type publication where each of the photographers has contributed a photo or two and a little story. And I can only imagine that through their meetups and the Discord group that they have, that would have really helped fuel their motivation to go out and shoot and to work on projects, whether it was solely for the aim of getting it into this publication or not. I think having that community can be a really important thing. So yeah, a great example there that I think can really work. All right, so the next one I have, and a lot of people reach to this first, and it is a good one. I don't always recommend it as the first thing, but it is really important sometimes for some people, and that is to just get inspired by outside work. So it doesn't have to be in the same thing. It doesn't have to be photography, for example. For me, when I want to get inspired, it's often through movies, watching movies, and the cinematography gives me motivation and inspiration for certain ideas. And another big one for me is photo books. So it's a little bit better, I think, than social media, because with social media, we're so trained to just have that really short input-output experience with the photography and scrolling and having a quick look, and it's on a little screen all the time. So even beyond that, there's a lot of benefits to looking at inspiration in a physical form, in a photo book. This is one of my favorite photographers, Sergio Lorraine. Sometimes I just take this book out to look at it for inspiration, and I highly recommend it if it's something you haven't done yet and you don't really think about. You don't even necessarily need to invest the money if you're not willing to do that. Maybe you can go to a library and look at photo books, because then you kind of also get outside and do something different, borrow one from a friend. But yeah, getting inspired by the work of people that you admire can help create motivation. So again, beware of that social media trap, and then also not getting trapped into just copying the work of others, and making sure it's just helping fuel your own ideas and inspire you in a way that motivates you to create your own work. And again, it doesn't always have to be in the same field. A lot of photographers are inspired by painters, for example. So that's my fourth strategy. The next one I want to talk about is to create some kind of habit or routine in your photography practice. So for me, as an example, I like street photography. So I try to just get out every now and then, and sometimes it's irregular. It can have been weeks or months without going out, but then sometimes I just go out anyway. So again, it ties back into point 2 of creating it. But just having some kind of routine of something that you do fairly regularly can help motivate you, because then it just becomes muscle memory, becomes a sense of routine and habit that you feel magnetically drawn to continue, even if there's been a bit of a gap since you've done it. So I can imagine that if you like hiking and you like landscape photography, just getting out and going on hikes, going on trips every now and then, whether or not you end up taking good photos or not, just having some kind of habit can help keep you motivated. Okay, so the next strategy that I think is worthwhile is to have certain goals in your practice. So it could be that you're building a body of work in terms of photography for a zine, for a family album, for a book. It could be anything really. Now this one's not completely necessary, because I think that photography in and of itself, without any end goal, is really fulfilling. Sometimes that's the only reason we do it, is to actually enjoy the process, to get us thinking, seeing things a certain way. But then if you enjoy it, if you think it's something that's worth it to you, you can create goals. I think it can be helpful for some people. For me, it certainly is, to have something that I'm working towards, whether it's a certain street photography series or something like that. But be careful not to be too hard on yourself, to be too strict on the deadlines, for example, and to have it backfire on you and then cause you to become unmotivated. Because what might happen is you set yourself a goal, it's too hard of a goal, or it's the deadline's too short, or you have too much of expectation on yourself to the point where you feel bad for not having reached certain checkpoints in that goal, if that makes any sense. So set goals, but set them wisely, make them realistic, and don't be too hard on yourself. All right, so the very last one I have is to get out and experiment and just play, just enjoy doing different things with your practice. So with photography, that could mean trying something different. If you always shoot the same kind of thing, the same lens, the same camera, the same film, go out and try something new. Even something as little as trying a new film stock that isn't what you normally shoot. Let's say you go and try a low speed 25 or 50 ISO film, or you go and try ultra wide angle lens or a fisheye lens, or a genre of photography that you've never tried, like macro or landscape or astrophotography. It can really help drive that motivation, and it kind of again ties back into point 2, which is why I think point 2 is so important. But sometimes it's just good to try new things. And another part of this strategy, I think, can be to do something different entirely. Okay, so if you're stuck, you're feeling unmotivated, you're feeling in this trap of not being able to create, go and just do something completely different. So not photography, go and try videography, go and try, bike riding. I'm just saying that because I rode my bike here, but I'm sure you can think of things, that are completely outside of that box of photography, because if you feel too trapped and you're constantly thinking about this one thing, trying something completely different, getting away from it for a while, can then refresh that motivation later so that when you come back to it, when you're ready, it feels fresh. You feel ready to just get back into things with that renewed sense of motivation. So that's pretty much it. That's what I wanted to share in this video. I just thought it would be something different, something that's on my mind lately because I get affected by this. I often hit bouts of demotivation, and it happens a lot. And a lot of the time, there's not much you can do about it, and you just need to be easy on yourself and sometimes allow it to happen. And a lot of the times, it is what it is. There is no motivation. You just go and do the thing, and then the motivation comes. And then also, those other strategies can help sometimes, but try what works for you. Let me know in the comments, is there something that is particularly effective for you? Have you tried any of these things that I've mentioned? I'll be interested to hear. So yeah, thanks for tuning into this one. That's all I really had to share in today's video. And thanks again for all the support on the channel. I'll see you in the next one.